The Killer is a new film by David Fincher, and after a limited theatrical release, it has made its way onto Netflix. Starring Michael Fassbender, the thriller follows an assassin who embarks on a revenge mission after a job gone wrong results in consequences that intrude into his personal relationships. Yes, that sounds very familiar. But before we get into the review, I'd just like to say hello! My name's Aidan Green. I love talking about film and TV, and if you like that stuff too, I'd love it if you subscribed. If not, well, that's a shame. The Killer is basically Hitchcock's Rear Window meets John Wick. Mainly the latter, but packaged up beautifully under Fincher's expert hand. It looks great, every shot is mesmerizing, and it sounds fantastic with a score and sound design that really got me going. Fassbender 2 is the perfect choice as the titular killer. I could seriously watch this guy just hang out, monologuing in a room all day. Those first 20 minutes of the movie where he did exactly that was by far the most I was into The Killer. But while the film is just as suspenseful as you'd expect from a Fincher feature, it's far more predictable than the rest of his work. And that's The Killer's biggest problem. The plot just feels incredibly ordinary. It's basically a revenge story about a man who begins to break his own rules, with the rule breaking being by far the most interesting part of the narrative. I loved the parallels Fincher drew throughout the film, showcasing the killer's downfall from a clinical, detached assassin to someone whose emotions begin to dictate their actions. But the problem is that this all gets established very early on, and once you get a hint of where the killer's story is going, there's little substance to come from then on, resulting in me feeling pretty empty by the time the credits rolled. The plot was just so bloody ordinary. It was good, but just nothing new. All that being said, The Killer never ceases to be engaging, and that's down to Fincher just knowing exactly how to handle the genre. It has your usual slow burn Fincher pacing and gritty tone, so if you're into that, The Killer is probably for you. Just don't go in there expecting one of his more interesting plots. I know the film is based off a book, but that doesn't mean that the film can't unravel a little less predictable than the source material. There is a fight scene in here that is honestly one of the most ridiculously entertaining fights I've seen in years. Literally, you feel every punch, you hear every stomp, you'll know what I mean when you see it. But yeah, I can't help but think that Fincher actually fancied a bit of John Wick action when making this. It's full on, like, so full on. So that's The Killer. Like I said, it's available on Netflix. We are living in such a strange time for features at the moment, aren't we? Where even the biggest directors of our time need to find streaming partners to fund the creation of their films. Like Scorsese needed Netflix for The Irishman and Apple for Flower Moon, and Wes Anderson's shorts headed straight to Netflix, although I think that's a different debate given that they were a collection of shorts as opposed to a feature. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing since most of these movies are getting some form of theatrical release, but it's just interesting that it seems to be really hard to get an original IP into the theater for an extended period these days. Just a bit of food for thought. Anyways, what did you think of The Killer? I enjoyed it. It was Fincher doing Fincher things, but the plot was so ordinary that I was left just a little empty by the end of it. The movie is just as ordinary as the title sounds. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in another video very, very soon. Goodbye!